Okay. I keep saying welcome to everyone because, of course, new people are joining all the time. I think we'll just give it a couple more minutes to allow a little backlog of people to join, and then we'll make a start this afternoon, and we'll be starting with some introductions. Okay, shall I start off with some introductions? We can admit people as they go, but why don't we start off? So good afternoon to everyone who's joined the webinar. I hope you can all see me. My name is Emma May. I know everyone is in a slightly different place on their screen, but my name is Emma May. I'm wearing a sort of navy blue top and I've got glasses on, and I'm the one currently talking. I'm Director of Operations and Employment for Work Avenue. I have full responsibility, I guess, for all the employment services that we offer to people who come to Work Avenue looking for work. So in normal times, we offer a range of services, including help with your CV, with interview skills, with networking, with where to look for work and how to look for work. And of course, we carry our own jobs board where we advertise jobs that are vacant. During these rather unusual times, which, 6 weeks ago, none of us could even have begun to have imagined, we were carrying an awful lot of jobs on our jobs board. Well, that situation may have changed slightly, but an awful lot of things have remained the same. And so the basic services that we're still offering, including employment support, help with your CV, help with networking, preparation for work, we're still offering. And of course, we've modified our services slightly so that we can now offer services in a remote way through Zoom conferencing, such as this webinar, through one-to-one meetings, and other types of support, and hopefully Zoom works for a lot of people. If not, of course, if you know anyone else who might need our help, phone will work just as well. I'm working with my colleagues this afternoon. So actually I'm going to allow and ask them to introduce themselves. So why don't we start off with Yael? Do you want to introduce yourself, Yael, first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. My name says Emma May. It's a bit of confusion, but I am not Emma May. I am Yael Solomons. Some familiar faces. Hello to everybody. Hello to all new people as well. I work on the employment team here at Work Avenue as well. My main role actually is managing our jobs board and speaking to our network of employers about any vacancies they have and they are looking to fill. Obviously, that's changed quite a bit over the last month or so. It was a very busy and active service. Unfortunately, has gone down a bit, but there are still some roles available. And generally, I help clients in other ways with their job search, interview practice, CVs as well. So nice to see you all this afternoon.
Great. Richard, can you introduce yourself, please? Richard Linden.
Yes, hi everyone. My name appears as Richard Linden, and I am actually Richard Linden. So nice to see you all. Obviously, I recognise a lot of you. I'm an employment advisor. Been at Work Avenue for about 2.5 years now. In total, I've been a careers and employment advisor for about 6 years. And yeah, the main stuff I do, I have one-to-one appointments at the moment. The majority of them are on Zoom or by telephone, helping people even amidst these times, helping people to apply for jobs, think about their careers, and generally help people in any way to do with employment, and thinking about what they can do in this time that we'll talk more about soon. So yeah, that's me. Nice to meet you all.
Finally, Melanie, if you're there, if you could introduce yourself too.
Sure. Hi everybody, good afternoon. I'm Melanie Pearl, and I say Melanie Pearl on my picture. I'm also an employment advisor at Work Avenue and have met many of you already, so lovely to see so many familiar faces, even online. We're lucky to be able to do this, but obviously it's not the same as in person. What I do is I meet clients on a one-to-one basis and help you really to move on with your job search, to think about the kind of job you might like to do, to help you with your CV, with networking skills, interview skills, and really sort of looking for a job, both before all this happened, afterwards, and during this time, thinking of the best way of approaching things as things are. I'm with Work Avenue 2 days a week, and the rest of the time I run an HR consultancy, so I'm often sitting on the other side of the table and recruiting people, interviewing people for jobs. And one of the things that I try to do is help people to think like an employer, think what's the employer really looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mel. We're going to move on. Before we do so, obviously there's a lot of people on the call, and if I could ask everyone to stay muted, it will just help the fluency of the progression of our session this afternoon. I hope you've all become aware and familiar with the chat feature. Do feel free to use the chat feature, either to ask a question or to comment. And hopefully I'll be picking that up. I'm not hugely experienced with it, but I'm getting more and more familiar with it as we go. So hopefully I will pick up your chat and we'll take it from there. Now, Melanie, first of all, I'd like to start off with you, because I think you're going to be sharing some main top tips for how to handle things at the moment. I mean, I think we're all agreed that, this is, it's been said over and over again ad nauseum, but we are truly in quite extraordinary times, times that none of us could have anticipated a week ago, and certainly, a month ago, and certainly haven't been present in my lifetime, and most people's lifetimes, quite frankly. So we're all learning as we go about dealing and coping in our new world. So with that in mind, Mel, maybe we hand over to you to kick things off with the top tips that you'd like to sort of start off sharing for now.
Sure, thank you very much, Emma. So I've been thinking about what tips to give you at the moment.
Sorry, Mel. Sorry to interrupt you. There's a few people that are still not muted, and that means we're getting feedback. So sorry to pick you out, but Julie Lewis, Roz's iPhone, because we're getting quite a bit of feedback. I think that's it, actually. But if you're not, then just please make sure you're muted. Sorry to interrupt you, Mel. Please carry on.
No, thank you. If anyone doesn't know how to do that, that's the top right-hand corner normally, where you can just mute yourself.
Actually, it's the bottom left.
Oh, is it bottom left?
Well, it depends can I just say, it depends what device you're on.
Depends what device.
Okay. Basically, you have to put the cursor over it. That's all the only commonality, it seems. Okay, so moving on with the top tips. So I've come up with 5 top tips to give you. This is very much about sharing top tips. So as I'm speaking, if you think of some top tips, some things that you've been doing to help towards your job search that you think will be helpful to others, do put them in the chat as well, because we'll obviously, I don't know it all, and we're all grappling with a very new situation here. I'm just going to share my screen and show you my top tips and then talk them through. Okay, hopefully you can all see those.
Yep.
Okay, so the first one is create a working day. So when you're at home, every day can feel the same. And I would say that it's really important to build in a routine, to build in a structure to what you're doing. And very importantly, to decide what hours you're working and get dressed. And I can see quite a few of you have got the screen blank. Does that mean you haven't got dressed? Does that mean you're still in your pajamas? I can see you, or maybe just the top half of you is dressed. But I would suggest that from here on in, that you develop a timetable as you would in a normal working place, so that you have your hours of work. Now, it may be that the normal hours of 9 to 5 don't work best for you. It might be that you have other responsibilities going on right now, and it might be that you need to change those hours slightly. But work out which are the best hours for you to pursue your job search. Second one, number 2, set yourself bite-sized goals. So we all know your overall goal is to find a job. But you're not going to do that in one day with the best will in the world. but you want to feel that you've achieved something. And I think one of the biggest challenges in looking for a job is feeling you've achieved something each day and each hour of every day. So what are you going to achieve this afternoon? You've already achieved something by coming along today. We hope by the end of this you will feel that. What are you going to do after that? What are you going to do tomorrow? How are you going to divide up your day? Whether that's I'm going to work on part of my CV, or I'm going to work on all of it, or I'm going to check out a couple of websites. I'm going to network with somebody. Make them into bite-sized chunks so that you feel that you've actually done something. Now, the best thing about doing that is, that I think, is when you make a list and then you tick off your achievements. And that feels very satisfying. And so, you know, I've even caught myself sometimes writing something on a list just so that I can tick it off that I've done that wasn't actually on the list in the first place, because it does feel really good to be able to do that. Number 3, use your time constructively. Use this time constructively. So it may be that you can actually get a job during this time, and we'll come on to how you actually reap the lockdown advantages, and there are some, believe it or not. But even if you can't, make sure you're using your time towards finding a job, either during this period or towards or when lockdown starts to ease, whenever that may be. And that can be making sure your CV is completely up to date, that you have 1 or 2 templates or more, so that you feel really ready, so that when the time comes, you're ready to go. Look at your online profile. So it's really important for most jobs to have a LinkedIn presence. Have a look at that. If you're not already on it, this is all with our help. We're very happy to help you and to carry on with Zoom appointments whenever you need those to help you through. But brush up your LinkedIn. I speak to lots of people who have a LinkedIn profile but say I haven't looked at it. This is a very good time to look at it and make sure it's as up to date as it can be. And also other social media as well. So, you know, if you're somebody who can use Twitter, if you're somebody who goes onto Facebook, make sure all of those are up to date and as you want them. People are online more than ever before. So they always have been. So I think there's been a lot of use online, but now of course everything's online. So people will expect you to be there. The other thing you can be doing with your time is volunteering. And if you're not working, there are a lot of volunteering opportunities around. Now, clearly only if you have time, but if you've got time to look for a job, you can have time to perhaps volunteer a few hours a week. That will add to your skills. It will also tell an employer what you've been doing with your time and how you've used it. And I think I actually spoke to a client yesterday who's recently graduated, and he's not working at the moment, and he hadn't registered for the NHS volunteer scheme. And I said, well, why not? And he said, well, you know, so I'm getting around to it. Now, I think when it comes to the end of this period, if you haven't done anything and you haven't volunteered, I think an employer will wonder why, if you're capable and you have the time. So I think there are lots of ways to do that. There's a Jewish volunteering network. There's another organisation called REACH, which is the sort of non-Jewish equivalent, where you can get volunteering roles. And obviously there's lots of local arrangements that people are putting together. Obviously taking account of the health factors, and a lot of those volunteering opportunities are within your own home, cooking in your own home, making phone calls in your own home, perhaps making deliveries where there's no contact and you have to do only what you feel comfortable with. Also, make a list of organisations you'd like to work in once the market changes. Who would they be? Are you going to approach them? How are you going to approach them? And this is where you can make something called where there isn't even a vacancy and you can apply. The fourth one is reaping the lockdown advantages. Now, even in this situation, there are things that have happened that people are happy about. Obviously, most of the time, this is a challenging situation. It's a very difficult situation. But one of the things that I think is much easier now is networking online. So we've always talked about networking and the value of networking, going to an employer and saying to them, I will fit in with you. Can I come and have half an hour of your time just to find out more about what you do? And as a job seeker, you could spend a lot of time going round different employers to go and have half an hour of their time. And now it's very acceptable to do that online. And also people are more happy than ever to help. And I think people have always been happy to help with networking, but right now we're kind of in this situation where people feel a little bit helpless. And to be able to help in some small way, people who are out of work, people will be delighted to do it. So do reach out to people, because I think this is a very good time to do it. The other thing is to think about organisations that are recruiting more than ever before. So we all know, obviously, the supermarkets and the NHS are recruiting heavily. Delivery companies, perhaps, like Deliveroo and Just Eat. But don't just think of the frontline jobs, unless obviously you're able to do those. If they're recruiting at the front line, they may be recruiting at more senior levels as well, and have a look whether perhaps they're recruiting in your specialism too. And the final one, number 5, is building the resilience to stay positive. And as I say it, that's obviously the toughest one of all. It's a very tough time not to be working, and it's tough to find the resilience and the energy to spend time on your job search when things are quite difficult. But to build that resilience, what I would say is keep busy, do a lot of these things that have been suggested, and you will feel better. That said, when you don't, and it's very rare to be able to stay positive all the time, do something else. Take yourself out of the situation, go for a long walk, do some exercise, eat chocolate if that's your thing, drink wine, do whatever it is you do to have a break from your job search. Nobody says you have to job search all the time. And I think it's important when you're feeling a little bit low that you take yourself down, out of that situation. Those are my 5 top tips, but interested to hear what other tips other people have. Thank you.
Okay, Mel, if you want to close down your screen.
Yes, I will do.
Share for now. Thank you. Okay, that was really a really helpful synopsis. I should say, for a lot of the things that Melanie was talking about there, we would really be very happy to help. It's what we do in our day jobs, in regular times and in these times as well. I'm going to give, if you want to talk to a Work Avenue employment advisor, and there's all of us who are performing that role, who are paid to do that role, and there are others as well who are not on this call or not on this webinar. I'm going to give an email address now, and I will repeat the email address at the end. So if anyone wants to just make a note, if you'd like a one-to-one appointment to talk through this and any other employment issues, it's what we're here to do. It's what we can do at all times. Email reception, that's reception, RECEPTION.
Chat as well.
I'm putting it on.
Oh, okay.
Okay, reception at theworkavenue.org.uk. That's reception at theworkavenue.org.uk. And explain your situation briefly. It doesn't have to be a long email, but you'd like a one-to-one appointment to talk to an employment advisor. We will be only too delighted to arrange that for you. And, you know, in these strange, you know, we all also understand that right now it's tricky because if people who have young children running around, it can be quite challenging to concentrate during daytime hours. So we're offering a combination of daytime and evening appointments as well, because for some people that might be better. Anything is possible. You just have to ask, and we're really happy to help. Okay, I will repeat that at the end. Okay. Moving on, we did ask, you know, if anyone had any questions that they'd like to put to the group, email them in, and we have had some questions in. So I'm going to start off with a question that came in from Julie. Julie, I know you're on the call somewhere. And her question was this.
I'm here.
Ah, hello, Julie. I was made redundant due to the virus. Will this impact on my interviews in any way? So I'm going to ask Yael if you wouldn't mind answering that question, because it's a really, really important question. We're in such strange times now. This is a sort of a hiatus of life. What's going to happen moving forward? If you could address Julie's issue.
Yeah, sure. So I think that's part of sort of a wider question that's often asked by employers in interviews, which is, why did you leave your last job? You know, if somebody has had a gap in their employment, for example, or why are you leaving your job? So in any scenario, there's quite a number of different responses that you could give to that. Obviously, some more positive and some not as much so. And I think in this scenario, that somebody who says that they were made redundant from their last role due to what is going on at the moment and the coronavirus outbreak is an extremely legitimate thing to say. There unfortunately have been many redundancies, many businesses closing permanently or temporarily, and a lot of changes and massive impacts on the job market, which everybody is aware of. So I think being made redundant in this time is not a reflection on a person and their skills. No. It's more a reflection of what's going on in the wider market. And I think employers would understand that. What I would add is, just to add on to what Mel said before, if you can then tell the employer that in the time since your redundancy, you have been doing things, either voluntary work, online courses, other things to sort of keep yourself busy, give yourself additional or transferable skills, that will obviously come across as very positive. And a general principle in interviews is try to keep everything as positive as you can in terms of moving forward.
Whether you're working or not. I mean, it doesn't matter what you're doing, because obviously I can't work at the moment. So because I did feel completely hopeless when it happened. I still do, because it happened to me. They furloughed some and got rid of others. I was one of the ones that didn't furlough because I hadn't been there long enough, you know. So it did make me feel, because the other people are like, oh yeah, I'm fine, you know. But I didn't get to feel like that. And that felt very unfair, you know. Even though I know why it's happening, it still felt unfair because I've worked hard. But as you say, I don't think so. I think I better try and move on from that feeling, because it's more about me, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it does feel very, obviously it does feel very personal to people when this happens, which obviously, you know, we all understand it's not a good feeling, but I think, you know, in the climate, it's unfortunately something that's happening quite a lot. And I think thinking of going forward and what you can do now, as you say, to keep busy, I don't think this is necessarily going to impact on people future interviews because of what's going on in the general market.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Hey, Melanie and Richard, do you want to add anything to that?
I would just add that it's the important thing to remember with redundancy is it's always the job that's redundant, not you. And I think that's
hard to feel like that.
No, I get that it is hard to feel like that, but it is the case. And in this market, there are so many people who have been affected in that way. In some ways, it's never easy to be made redundant, for a person to feel that their job's been made redundant. But I think in this market particularly, to say my role was made redundant due to coronavirus is a very legitimate reason. No one is going to suspect anything else at all.
No. No. Thank you.
Richard?
Yeah, no, I think it's covered. I think they both covered
I would also say tie it into to what Melanie was talking about earlier, which is, you know, remind yourself it's the role that's been made redundant. And yes, it's very easy for us to say all of the things which Melanie alluded to. But I would also say, if you can also tie that into what Melanie was saying about, use the time constructively for other things. It all adds up to actually a very, very positive message. You know, to be in any way accountable for anything that happens during the times of the virus is everyone, the whole world will understand that. But then to also say, and by the way, I maximize my time by, I don't know, supporting my local community by delivering prescriptions, or volunteering for the NHS, or baking cakes, or doing some shopping for an elderly neighbour, or whatever it happens to be, can only be viewed as a positive thing. You know, there's not a person on the planet that isn't going to be in a worse position because of the virus than they were before, you know, on a personal level, on a health level, on a family level, on a financial level, on a job. You know, we are all having to cope with so many challenges that we couldn't possibly have imagined before. So I think, Mel said,
as you say, 6 weeks ago, who could have? That's
right. Perversely, as Mel said, it kind of is in your favour in a weird sort of way.
What, to restart, reboot, that sort of thing.
To reboot and use it as a positive.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay, another question that we've had in is from Jilly. I know you're also somewhere on this webinar, Jilly. There's a lot of faces. But Jilly's question is, aside from Indeed, LinkedIn, Glassdoor and JobScan, are there any other websites that could be recommended as part of a job search? Richard, could you start with that one, please?
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of websites. Obviously, people going for different jobs in different industries will it would be beneficial for them to look at certain websites. Certain websites are more synonymous for certain industries. So it really depends. You'll all be going for sort of different types of jobs, I'm assuming. So it depends on what you're going for. But yeah, there's tons. The obvious very first thing to do would just literally to type in your job search to Google. So, you know, property manager job London into Google, and to literally go through pages, and you'll find all sorts of different jobs. For example, you might find a website called JobSite might come up higher up than something like Gumtree, because Gumtree, you don't really see jobs advertising property management, whereas JobSite, you're more likely to, because it's more of a construction-based recruitment site. So yeah, look, first thing I would do is look on Google. And you'll find lots of different, I mean, Google's got its own job search, but you'll also, if you scroll down, you'll also find websites that will come up time and time and again when you do your job search. So those are obviously websites to look at. Other than that, I mean, locally, you know, you've got various things like our website. You've got sort of smaller local recruitment agencies, for example, Fame Recruitment in Golders Green. You've got Everywhere K. I mean, I've looked on some of these websites recently, and there's not a huge amount. There's not, you all know there's not masses of jobs out there, but there are some, and they do come up. I mean, I'm sure at some point Yael will mention our website. We've got, you know, 15 or more jobs on there at the moment, which is a lot less than we did have, but it's still some jobs that some companies that are looking. You've also got, apart from the sort of the local sites, you've got, for example, if you're going for a job in a charity, you could try charityjob.com. There's quite a few other charity recruitment sites as well, and I've looked on there, and there's jobs on there. Obviously, when you're looking, make sure you look at the date that the job was posted, because some of the companies, some of the recruitment sites won't have taken down jobs. So if it was posted a month ago or 2 months ago, you've just got to be very careful. It's probably not an active job. And if you're not sure, then I would advise contacting that recruitment site. They've always got contact details, maybe picking up the phone. I'm sure they would have furloughed a few staff, but I'm sure a lot of these recruitment companies, a lot of the big websites will have staff working for them. So it's worth just asking them. There's no harm in emailing them, calling them up and asking them. There's tons of other ones. The government have got their own, I think it's gov.uk/find a job. You've got all the kind of 10 to 2 working mums, all of those type of sites if you're looking for part-time or virtual administrator or things like that. Then you've got all the newspapers like The Guardian, The Telegraph, and various other things. For anyone that's looking for jobs in startups, you've got things like angel.co. There's loads of different sites like that. And actually quite a few startups have emerged in this period that are kind of doing something that's going to earn them money in this time. So actually there are some I mean, we've heard of a couple recently, for example, an organization that makes screen doors within hospitals. They were recently looking for, you know, something that's obviously going to be effective in this time, because any products for hospitals are going to be sought after. So yeah, lots and lots of different websites. I think the main place to start is Google, and is to scroll down through page 1, page 2, page 3, and make a list, a separate list of what websites, you know, you've seen jobs on that work for you. That are, you know, that you're going to apply for, and then check back onto those specific websites every week or every day or however often. One more thing to add, well, two more things to add. Facebook groups are very good. I was helping someone a couple of weeks ago look for a job in content writing, looking to pick up some extra freelance work, and there was a Facebook group called something like Content Writer Jobs, and 22 minutes before I looked on it, that someone had posted they urgently needed someone to do a copywriter. And when I looked down the page a bit more, there were about 5 that day. So Facebook groups, that was just one example, by the way. There's literally hundreds of Facebook groups. Look, obviously there are going to be less jobs now, but if you're persistent, if you look hard enough, you never know what you might find, like the person I helped a couple of weeks ago. Okay. And the one more thing is apps as well. There's various apps like Job Swipe and Hunter and things like that on the phone that you can get in the Play Store. So I hope that was a comprehensive enough answer. That is
I mean, it's one of those situations where it's endless, isn't it? The amount of options and everything. Like with anything else, start somewhere, and as you search for something else will come up as well. You will find more sites, and as Richard said, it depends very much on the area you want to look at. Now, I'm keen to move on because the questions are coming in quite thick and fast on the chat. So I'm going to take, in kind of the order they're coming in, Elena's question, which is, she was volunteering before the lockdown, but hasn't been able to volunteer since the lockdown started, because of course, like many others, she's got young children around the place, and she's concerned that it's not going to look good on her CV. Do we have any suggestions for parents of young children in particular? It's a real challenge. I mean, I would say that I now know all the children of my colleagues intimately, having seen them on Zoom calls frequently, and their pets. So you know, it's so hard when children are around. Melanie, would you like to start off with that, if you can?
Yeah, sure. So I know I do sympathise. It is very hard to be both looking for a job, doing some voluntary work, and looking after your children. There's a lot to be done there. The thing that I would ask is whether within your routine you can fit in any volunteering work. Now, it doesn't have to be many hours a week. It can be 1 hour a week, 2 hours a week, in an evening. If there's any chance of you doing that, there are lots of volunteering opportunities making phone calls. From your own home. If you're a cook, sometimes there are local organisations that are doing cooking from home, so that you can do alongside cooking for your own family. You do an extra couple of meals, but obviously there's an expense there, and you have to think whether or not that's right for you. But there are a couple of volunteering organisations which I mentioned when I was speaking at the beginning. The Jewish Volunteering Network have a particular actual area for COVID-19 jobs, and they are, a lot of those, I was just looking through them yesterday, a lot of them are based at home. They don't tend to ask too much of your time, so if you want to volunteer every single day of the week, of course you can, but most of them are 2 or 3 hours a week. So do go on to that. It's jvn.org.uk, and also reach.org.uk, or it might just be reach.org, sorry, it's one of those. Sorry. They have, sorry, there was just a bit of interference there. They have quite a lot of jobs generally on there, but they have a lot now. So when I say jobs, I mean volunteering opportunities. There are a lot on there working from home. So I think if you can fit something in, then that will be good. If not, if it can't happen during this time and you have to pick things up when this period ends, I also think employers will understand that you had to be at home with your children all of this time. It's not one person doing that or a couple of people, it's everybody. So, you know, so if it's not possible for you, I think you pick up when the time's over.
And, you know,
Okay.
Jess has also asked about, you know, if someone has specific health concerns, that means that volunteering, there is a restriction on the volunteering that might be possible because of health concerns, and particularly so during times of the virus. I would say the same kind of applies. Go to JoVN, see what's possible. Some things obviously do require people to be out and about, but not everything does. There is so much with telephoning, with preparing things, with you know, I've come across all sorts of things that as Mel said, from the home, which can be done flexibly and without any particular health hazards or health risks as well. So, you know, just to sort of add to that, children, you know, many people have restrictions on what they can do, how and when they can do it as well. But there is something out there for everyone, according to the restrictions and the parameters that you're working to. Okay.
Sorry. Oh, I was sorry. I was just going to add one more thing, which is, obviously we're talking specifically about volunteering here, but if you're thinking more widely of things that you can do during this time to try and help you with going back to work going forward, then also thinking about, I guess, online courses that you may be able to do. There's a lot happening in the e-learning space at the moment, both in terms of finding courses and in terms of people giving courses. That's one area where there is actually some hiring going on, and IT skills, other things like that as well. So transferable skills you could gain for the workplace when you go back to work doesn't only have to come from volunteering, although obviously I understand that people do wish to volunteer at this time for other reasons as well.
Yeah, and just to add to that, some of the online courses, some of you might not be so familiar with. There's one called, maybe I can type them on the chat. There's one called Alison. So if I just put here online courses. Obviously, there's courses these days in absolutely everything. I mean, even if it was just something that took your fancy, that you like the sound of, you know, you might be able to find it. And a lot of them are very cheap or even free, or a lot of the course providers have even reduced their prices or made some of the courses free during this coronavirus period. So there's actually loads that you can find on there. I'm just going to put a few on the chat. There's one called Alison, which is definitely free. I think they've got hundreds of courses. I think it's alison.com. There's another one that partners with LinkedIn, which is called Linda, which I think you have to pay for. I'm not sure if they've reduced it or made it free during this period. I haven't looked, but I think prior to this, it was you got your first month free, I believe, and then you had to pay something like £20 or £30 a month or something like that. Another one is, in fact, someone's just put one on David's just messaged the group saying Udemy, which is another one, which is actually quite good for things like computer programming or digital marketing, graphic design, things like that. And he's also put Future Learn. I've heard of that one. I'm not so familiar with it, but you could try that as well. You've also got, I don't know how many of you have heard of Skillshare. It's another one. I think it's an American one. But on that site, you've literally got a ton of things that you can do. It's not just, you know, as Yael was saying, IT skills and you know, the sort of popular courses like, you know, marketing and things like that. It's literally anything and everything. The other one, very quickly, is Open University. Do a load of short courses. I'm going to add that as well. You've got Read, which, okay, none of them are really accredited, and they're all sort of like £500 reduced to 10 or something like that. But I have spoken to a few clients that have done courses on there, that have been quite informative and have taught them a few things. So for £10, I suppose you can't go wrong. Yeah, any others to add? I'm just going to put that on the group.
I'm conscious of time, and,
yeah, sure.
There's quite a lot of questions to get through, so I would like to move on if that's okay.
Go for it.
I'm working through the chat at the moment, and the next thing I come to, Steph, I'm going to unmute you. I hope I'm going to unmute you. Don't seem to be able to unmute you. Yes, I've unmuted. Yeah, I've unmuted you now, Steph. You asked about effectively your situation in furlough, and what you said on the chat is that you've been furloughed and you hope to be able to go back to the job that you were doing before, which of course has to be the right thing. But do you keep your options open just in case now? And someone has replied to you about freelance websites and things like that. Did that adequately answer your question? But I wonder whether it might be an idea to just open things out a bit more about furlough now. Luckily, we have Mel on the call today, who's also an HR expert. So, Mel, do you want to talk a bit about the options of furlough and what might be possible for people who have been furloughed vis-a-vis their old job and potential other opportunities?
Yeah, sure. So when you're on furlough, the government have said that you can actually work. You can even get another job while you're on furlough, as long as your contract doesn't have any restrictions. So your contract may have a restriction. A very common one would obviously be to work for a competitor, so you wouldn't be able to do that. But the thing to bear in mind with that, it's all very well for the government to say that, but you've also got to be aware that every 3 weeks, the employer can ask you to come back. So if you're working somewhere else and then 3 weeks later they call you back, you have to be in a position to go back. So bear that in mind as you're looking. You can volunteer. You can volunteer at any time at all, and that will increase your skills. And it also, as we've said earlier, in some depth, that really does help.
Well, you've got a little bit robotic
in the future, but working for another organisation. Oh, so no. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Any better?
Yeah.
Good, thank goodness for that. Okay, so what I was saying is that it's worth, while you're not working, you don't know when your employer is going to take you back. So we hope it's not going to be too long. If you want to keep your options open, yes, look around, be ready, prepare your CV. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date, because you've got that time. You might as well keep yourself busy, and with volunteering. Just be wary of the paid work and taking it on while you're on furlough. What you could always do, if you were lucky enough to get another job while you're on furlough, and clearly that's not as easy as that, is to ask your employer. Say to your employer, I'm on furlough, I really want to come back to you as soon as possible. I just want to check how things are. The chances are they're going to come back and they'll say, I really don't know at the moment, in which case you might want to make the judgment and say, you know what, I really want my old job back, and therefore I'm not going to take the chance. Does that answer the question? Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. It's never easy. We're dealing with a whole series of unknowns here, and that makes it very tricky for us all to, to plan for the future. We do the best we can, I guess. So thank you, and thanks for the question, because furlough is a really important area to consider. I'm going to mute you again, if you don't mind, Steph. I have control over these things, and I just think it's probably better because there's quite a lot of people on the call. Okay, now moving through the questions, I can see that Ruth has asked about JSA, Job Seekers Allowance, and it's a benefits question, really. Now, I have to say to you, Ruth, that we are not benefits experts per se. It's a whole other area, benefits at the moment, which is very, very difficult. I can certainly direct you to another organisation who you may or may not have come across, called Paperweight. They're another organisation that help people with all matters financial like that. So do talk to Paperweight. If you Google, you'll find them. And also Citizens Advice, the CAB, Citizens Advice Bureau, can help with that as well. And there may be information available on the government website, but I'm nervous to give specific answers about benefits, because we don't really hold ourselves out to be benefits experts in that way. So I hope that was helpful. Go to Paperweight, go to the Citizens Advice, and go to the government website and see what they have to say on the matter as well. Okay, I've got some other questions here that were forwarded to us in advance. And someone asked about speculative applications at the moment. What's the best way of making a speculative application at the moment? Melanie, do you want to start with that one, if your sound holds out well enough?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we're good.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'll keep talking until I'm told otherwise. I hope so. I'm sorry. I have other people using the internet in the house, and I've tried to stop them, but they're busy. So in terms of speculative applications, so speculative applications are where you make an application and there isn't actually a job advertised. Now, clearly, some organisations pretty obviously are not hiring right now. But there are lots that we hear of in the news who are really needing staff more than ever before. And I've read things about Tesco hiring in 48 hours because they're so desperate. Now, not everybody wants to work in the supermarket or on a supermarket shop floor, but there may be vacancies at more senior level. And there are also vacancies in the NHS. And it's worth thinking quite creatively. So thinking, right, okay, who's supplying those supermarkets? Who are the delivery companies? Who are the companies like Deliveroo and Just Eat, who suddenly have a much bigger workload than they ever had before? I've been working with a client to help on the HR side, who works quite closely with Deliveroo. All of his business is now with Deliveroo, because Deliveroo are, have grown, tenfold over, or probably more overnight. So worth looking on the websites to see what's there. But if there isn't anything there, it's worth making a speculative application. Now, how do you do that with a huge organisation? This is where networking comes in. So it's worth looking, and I'm a great believer in being on LinkedIn for most jobs. The beauty of LinkedIn is that you've got all your own connections. Now, you probably know pretty much whether any of your connections work for Deliveroo, for example, but you might not know whether one of them is connected to somebody else who works for Deliveroo at a senior level. And the beauty of LinkedIn is that you can ask someone who you're connected with to introduce you to somebody who they're connected with. And because they know both of you, assuming you know each other in some way, you don't have to know each other really well, it's a business site, they will introduce you. And they'll be very happy to do it because it actually makes them feel good, but also because people are very happy to help. So that's the first port of call, is to then talk to someone who works for the organisation and say, if I wanted to apply for a job in marketing at Deliveroo, who would be the best person to speak to about it? And using your network to find out. And the other way is also to put in the organisation into the search bar on LinkedIn and also on their website, and find out who the key people are. The best way to make a speculative application is to make it by name, to address it to an individual. Send a good cover letter. We can help you with that, putting together a cover letter that talks about why you're the right person for the job. Sometimes you have to think creatively about your transferable skills from where you've already worked, management skills, admin skills, which transfer from one industry to another nicely. And you have a CV that's adapted accordingly as well. And then I would put in the letter that you will call them within the next week with a view to meeting up. Be very positive and make a note to do that. You have to be very organised about your job search so that you remember to do that.
That's obviously meeting up virtually online at the moment.
Yes, sorry, I should clarify that. Yes, every time I'm mentioning, or any of us are mentioning meeting right now, it's online. But meeting online is, as I said, is much easier than meeting in the real world. It's, you know, as long as you've got the technology, which all of you have, because you're all here, then people will do it. And all you're doing is you're asking for half an hour of somebody's time during a time when people are more eager to help. So use it, and then I would say then make those speculative applications as much as you possibly can.
I don't know, Richard or Yael, do you want to add anything to that?
You're still watching it.
I mean, with speculative applications, yeah, obviously we can paint, you know, we obviously want to paint a good picture, but a lot of companies won't be hiring right now. So I think one thing to make sure you are is to try not to get too despondent if you don't hear back from them. I mean, Mel's absolutely right. If you go for the companies that are definitely hiring, then of course you've got a much better chance. And actually, there's a way to find out which companies are hiring at the moment. There's lots of information online. One of our other colleagues who isn't on this Zoom meeting sent a link. I think she typed into Google companies hiring now, and there was a link, and there was literally a scrolling kind of big long list of companies that are hiring right now. So I'm sure you'll find that on Google. There's also, you know, I know Monster, you've probably heard of the recruitment site Monster. They've put on their website companies that are hiring currently. And I'm sure if you look on like Indeed and various other big, you know, massive recruitment sites, they've probably also done an article on it, or they've got a list of jobs for companies that are hiring. Like, for example, you know, Doritos, I heard of hiring at the moment, Costco, National Grid, believe it or not, Tesla. I've just made a little list here. All the obvious ones, Amazon, Tesco's, and a lot of those sort of companies, but a lot of the online ones as well. So if you find the companies that are hiring, that's probably your best bet for the people to contact, as opposed to just contacting loads of people willy-nilly, because a lot of companies would have been struggling at the moment. So I hope that's helpful.
I'm conscious of time, and we are sort of heading towards the end of the allotted hour. So I want to just, there's one more question that someone did ask, and it's such a relevant question, so I do want to make sure it's asked. And that is, you know, Work Avenue pride themselves on placing people in work directly. It's what we do in normal times, the whole time, and every year we place, you know, many people, over 100 people last year, into jobs directly from our own website. Are we offering any jobs at the moment through our website? And for that question, I need to go to you, Yael, seeing as you're the person that manages the website and our job.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so yes, as Emma said, many of you will know that we have jobs board on our website. And if you haven't seen it, you can go and have a look after the webinar today. So just to give an idea, obviously, we know, as we've been saying, things have changed. The beginning of the year, I have to say the job market was very good from what we had seen. At any time we had between, I would say, 45 to 70 jobs on our jobs board. And I see that has come down now to about sort of 15 roles. And we are still hearing about jobs, but the type of employers we tend to work with are small, medium-sized businesses or other organizations within the community. So a lot of these businesses and organizations are ones that have been sort of hit quite hard by this and have put a hold on their recruitment. I would say businesses that are still hiring tend to be more in the essential functions of the business. So for example, on our jobs board now, at least a third of the jobs are within the accounts or bookkeeping field, because any employer or any business that is staying open, that is an essential function for them. And also it's something that can be done from home as well. And that's sort of a big element for people now if they're taking on staff, the whole training side of things as well. So we have placed somebody since the lockdown into a bookkeeping type role. I think we are about to place somebody else into a different one. So I would say there are things happening. It is slower than normal. Some of the employers have said to us they are happy to advertise jobs, happy to interview people remotely, but they are going to have to confirm start dates of jobs down the line depending on sort of what happens. So I'd say that's sort of the picture for the small, medium-sized organizations that we work with within our network. we are still staying in touch with them. They are staying in touch with us because they know we're here. As much as possible, we will continue to put our clients forward for jobs. The type of roles that have been discussed already here, obviously in supermarkets, NHS, etc., are not jobs that Work Avenue has access to. So those are obviously roles where you would make your own applications. Just a couple more to add on there from what's been mentioned already in my research. A lot of companies are hiring more for customer service, not just in store, but also on the phone. For example, in the coming year, there's going to be a massive recruitment drive now for HMRC because of all the schemes that are in place. They're going to need people to advise on that. Virgin Media as well, a lot of jobs. I think utility companies, insurance companies, because anyone who's been trying to phone these companies will know that you have been on the phone for a very long time. So they should be taking people on there as well. So that's the wider market. From our perspective, our jobs board is happening, active, and you will see on there that the jobs we know are actively recruiting now are listed as actively recruiting. If anybody has questions about any of the jobs or would like to apply to any of those jobs, please contact me directly and I'm very happy to discuss that further with you.
Okay, I'm conscious of time. There's one question that's just popped up on the chat, which is, are you still offering mock interviews at the moment? Obviously virtually at the moment. The simple answer to your question is yes, very much so. A mock interview works best if there is a real interview taking place, because what we do is we try and shape the content of the interview questions to be those most likely to be coming up during the course of the interview. And different organisations interview in different ways, and we try and reflect that in the way we prepare for a mock interview. Very much so. Those of you who have a real interview coming up, that real interview is almost certainly to be virtual at the moment via Zoom or some other video conferencing means. We are only too happy to arrange a mock interview for it. It would be our pleasure. We're in the business of helping people find employment, and we'll do whatever it takes to support you in your job search, to help you find work. Mock interviews, help with your CVs, networking assistance and the jobs that we're still currently advertised. Sometimes people just want to have a one-to-one appointment to be reassured about what they're doing at the moment, to make sure it's right, to be reassured that they're taking steps forward in these really, really difficult times. We are happy to do all of the above. As we approach the end of this session, I firstly want to thank you all very, very much for time this afternoon. It's been a real pleasure to see you all, if only virtually. Things are so unusual at the moment, but I also have to say we're getting used to unusual. Unusual is now becoming usual, and we're all adapting very, very well. We have recorded this session. It will be available on Work Avenue's YouTube channel. So do look out for it there. It will be going up later. So that will be of assistance. I'm going to repeat to you the email address should you want a one-to-one appointment virtually with a Work Avenue advisor. Do email reception@theworkavenue.org. That's reception@theworkavenue.org.uk. I would also say that each of our email addresses is available on the Work Avenue website, so do feel free. You know how to contact each of us. We're all available, we're all here, we're all talking to you, so you can do that as well. And if anyone also is thinking about freelancing or doing consultancy work, or perhaps being a little bit enterprising and setting up, maybe a small business, either because of the times we're in at the moment, or because that simply is where you've got to in your life at the moment, please also email reception@theworkavenue.org.uk, because we can help you with freelancing, developing your freelancing activity, developing a small business. We do just as much on the business startup side as we do on the employment side, have experts who can help you with that as well. All things are possible, and we're only too happy to help. Now, at 1:03, it only remains for me to thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. This webinar is the first webinar from the employment team during these times. The next one is actually scheduled to take place 2 weeks from now, and that will be the 29th. No, it won't. It will be the 6th of May. And in that one, that webinar is entitled The Networking Special. And it's the socially distant guide, make the most of the unique opportunities presented by COVID-19 lockdown to reach out to your networks, both existing and new. Obviously, we'll be reaching out via the usual means of contact, so alert you to that one. But if you found this afternoon useful, please do log on to the next one. I hope you will. And if you think anyone else may benefit, do spread the word, because we love to talk to you. We love to help you. You know, it will be good to see you on the next one. I should also advise that there's a social media webinar next week on the 29th of April. So that could also be interesting to many, adjusting your messaging across all social media during COVID-19. Each of our webinars we do publicize, so you will hear about them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been a pleasure to work with you and talk to you all this afternoon in these strange times, and look forward to talking to you all on the special shout out to Melanie from Esty there. That's very nice. And we look forward to talking to you all again on the next webinar. And do be in touch with us sooner than that, because we would love to be able to help you all in these difficult times. Thank you very much. And I'm going to close the webinar now. So thank you all very, very much indeed.
Thank you very much.